Rimuru x Arifureta. Fragments of Soul to be the Strongest by Rimu_Kai. Chapter 6 Monster or a Human? Hajime groaned as he lay on the cold, jagged ground. A throbbing pain pulsed in his skull, forcing him to clutch his head as he slowly regained consciousness. His body ached, and his vision blurred before finally adjusting to the dim surroundings. My head. What happened? He muttered, blinking several times to clear his sight. He slowly sat up, taking in his surroundings. Towering stone formations stretched high above him, barely illuminated by the faint glow of luminescent minerals embedded in the cavern walls. A chill ran down his spine. "Where am I?" he whispered to himself, glancing around in a mix of confusion and unease. Memories suddenly came rushing back: the battle, the bridge, the fireball that struck him. His eyes widened as realization hit. I fell into the depths of the labyrinth, he shivered as panic settled in. Hajime staggered to his feet and walked aimlessly, searching for any sign of a way out. "How'd I get out of here?" he muttered. Minutes passed, then hours. The overwhelming silence pressed down on him, amplifying his growing anxiety. He asked himself the same question over and over. How'd I get out of here? His breath became ragged and fatigue gnawed at him, yet his legs kept moving. How'd I get out of here? The words were almost a chant now, a desperate plea that fell on no one's ears but his own. As he explored, Hajime noticed something peculiar. Unlike the structured tunnels of the upper floors, this level of the labyrinth felt raw, untouched. The cavern walls were rough, uneven, and seemingly natural. "This place, it doesn't feel man-made," he murmured. "This floor is different from the 20th. It's almost like a wild ecosystem." His eyes scanned the area. It was eerily quiet. No monsters, no magical beasts. Just empty space. Strange. No monsters in sight. But if there are any, I should be able to handle them. After all, Rimuru's training wasn't for nothing. A sudden movement caught his attention. A small, furry creature hopped into view, a rabbit. Hajime stared at it, baffled. A rabbit? Really? I thought the deeper you go, the more dangerous it gets. But here we are. A bunny rabbit. He almost laughed at the absurdity. Then, a low growl filled the air. A gray-furred wolf emerged from the shadows, its sharp eyes locked onto the rabbit. Hajime watched as the predator tensed, ready to pounce. In an instant, the wolf lunged. But before its jaws could close, the rabbit suddenly sprang into the air, landing effortlessly on an invisible platform. Hajime's breath hitched. What the? Then, the rabbit's legs glowed with black light. 3 razor-sharp blades of energy extended from its feet. With a single, almost lazy kick, the rabbit sliced through the wolf in an instant. Blood splattered onto the cavern floor. The rabbit landed gracefully beside the corpse and, without hesitation, began eating the wolf. Hajime's body stiffened in horror. His hand flew to his mouth to stop himself from making a sound. That thing isn't a rabbit, it's a monster. Then, the creature's ears twitched. Slowly, it turned its grotesque face toward Hajime. Its beady red eyes gleamed with hunger. Hajime's blood ran cold. In the next moment, the rabbit lunged at him, its blade-like feet aiming straight for his throat. Hajime barely dodged, rolling to the side as the blades carved into the rock where he had stood. Shit! He spun around and delivered a desperate kick, knocking the monster back. Then, he ran. The rabbit recovered almost instantly and chased after him. Hajime's heart pounded as he darted through the cavern, desperately searching for a way to escape. But no matter how fast he ran, the monster was right behind him. Then, he found himself trapped. A massive boulder blocked his path. He turned sharply, now cornered between the rock and the relentless rabbit. The monster's blades gleamed as it prepared to strike. Hajime braced himself, his body tense, his mind racing. But just as the rabbit moved to attack, it stopped. Its ears twitched, and in an instant, it turned tail and bolted, vanishing into the shadows. Hajime's breath came in ragged gasps. What? Why did it run? Then, a deep, guttural growl rumbled above him. His heart nearly stopped. Slowly, he tilted his head up. A monstrous bear loomed over him from the top of the boulder. Its crimson eyes locked onto Hajime, and as it raised a paw, Its claws extended and took on the same eerie glow as the rabbit's. 3 long, blade-like appendages formed at the tips. Hajime's eyes widened in horror. With one swing, the bear sent its energy blades slicing through the air, striking down the fleeing rabbit. The poor creature was torn apart in a single slash. The bear jumped down, landing with a thunderous impact. It tore into the rabbit's remains with savage hunger. Hajime felt sick. He had thought the rabbit was terrifying, but this was a predator beyond comprehension. The hunter became the prey of something even worse, he muttered. Then, the bear stopped eating. It turned. Its gaze locked onto him. Hajime's body stiffened. His breath hitched in his throat. Then, his terrified scream echoed through the cavern. The bear roared and charged. Hajime ran, his legs fueled by sheer desperation. The beast swiped its claws, sending those deadly blades flying toward him. Hajime barely dodged, rolling out of the way just in time. He scrambled to his feet, running with every ounce of strength he had. But the bear was faster. The next attack came before he could react. A searing pain shot through him. His body lurched forward, his vision blurred. Then, he felt it. Something was missing. His legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the ground. His breathing was ragged. His vision wavered. Then, he saw it. The bear was chewing on something, a piece of flesh. His arm. His own arm. The realization hit like a thunderbolt. A scream of agony tore from his throat. Darkness threatened to consume him as the pain became unbearable. Hajime screamed in agony as the horrifying reality sank in. His left arm was gone. The bear was devouring it, crunching through bone as if it were a mere snack. Trembling, his body frozen in fear, Hajime watched as the monster finished its gruesome meal before turning its massive head towards him. Drool dripped from its fangs, eyes locked onto its next target. The sheer pressure of death loomed over him. His breath was ragged, his vision blurred, but instinct, no, desperation, kicked in. He threw his remaining hand against the stone wall behind him. His mind screamed for an escape, his body moved on its own. Mute, he shouted in pure desperation. A hole carved itself into the rocky cavern wall, forming a narrow tunnel just large enough for him to crawl through. Without hesitation, Hajime scrambled inside, dragging his bloodied body through the passage. He gasped, his breath heavy, his heart pounding like a drum inside his ears. Fear had saved him. The bear, however, had no intention of letting its prey escape. With a deep, guttural growl, it raised its massive claws and slashed at the wall, tearing away chunks of stone like brittle clay. The tunnel trembled, dust and debris raining down upon Hajime as he pressed further inside. Transmute. Transmute. Transmute, he panted, his voice growing hoarse. Each time the monster clawed at his sanctuary, he reinforced the wall, trying desperately to hold back his relentless predator. But he was weakening. His mana reserves were dwindling, his body drained from both blood loss and overuse of magic. Damn it! Transmute! The beast let out a frustrated roar, slamming its clawed paw against the barrier once more. The impact sent a tremor through the tunnel, cracks forming along the walls. Hajime bit his lip, forcing himself to focus. His trembling hands continued shaping the rock. Then, silence. The bear huffed, its snout sniffing the air. After a long, tense moment, it let out a final snarl before turning away, its heavy footsteps fading into the darkness. Hajime gasped in relief, his vision spinning. But his suffering was far from over. A searing pain coursed through his body, a reminder of his missing arm. Blood still poured from his shoulder, pooling beneath him. His breath came in short, desperate gasps. If I keep bleeding like this, I'm going to die. His body trembled, consciousness slipping. His mind drifted between reality and memory. Kaori, her warm smile, her promise to protect him. Rimuru, his ever-present guardian, his older brother who had always been there for him. Shizuku, her quiet yet unwavering kindness. Aiko-sensei, her gentle voice, her concern for him. Were they safe? Did they even realize he was gone? Would they mourn him, or would he simply be forgotten? Darkness consumed his mind, but within it, a vision emerged. A throne. A figure seated upon it, elegant, imposing, draped in regal garments. Long blue hair cascaded over his shoulders, and curved horns jutted from his head. His piercing eyes glowed with an otherworldly radiance. It was Rimuru. But different. His presence was overwhelming, divine yet terrifying. He looked down upon Hajime with an unreadable expression, exuding an aura of undeniable dominance. The Hajime who sat before him was not the same weak boy lying broken in the depths of Orcus. No, this Hajime was different. The vision shattered as a cool sensation trickled into his mouth. A crisp, refreshing taste spread over his tongue, jolting his senses awake. Hajime's eyes fluttered open, his body still aching, but something was different. He was alive. His missing arm was still gone, but the wound had sealed, no more bleeding. How am I alive? He muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Then he saw it. A massive crystal embedded in the cavern ceiling. It pulsed with an ethereal glow, droplets of shimmering liquid falling steadily from its surface. A holy crystal. Hajime had read about them before. Extremely rare gemstones capable of condensing mana into liquid form. The resulting substance, known as holy water, was said to heal all wounds and cure any disease. Legends even spoke of its ability to grant immortality if consumed regularly. Looking down, Hajime saw a small pool of the liquid surrounding him. He had been lying in it, soaking in its miraculous properties. Someone saved me. No answer came, only silence. His body trembled. His mind was breaking. The pain, the terror, the loneliness, it was too much. He was alone, trapped in the abyss, abandoned by the people who had once surrounded him. His heart ached. He wanted to cry, to scream, to beg for someone to come. But his voice failed him. No one was listening. For the first time, Hajime understood the depth of despair. Hajime lay in that hole for 4 days, unmoving. The holy water kept him alive, but that didn't mean he wasn't suffering from hunger. His stomach felt like it was twisting in on itself, yet his body remained weak and motionless. He could do nothing but think. What happened to me? How did I end up here? Then it came back to him. The moment he tried to run away from the behemoth. The fireball that struck him, sending him plummeting into the abyss. It wasn't a mistake. That attack was aimed directly at him. Someone tried to kill me. His mind raced for possibilities. Kaori? No, she wouldn't. Daisuke? Kuki's friend? Kyutaru? It could be any of them. But in the end, did it even matter? I was going to die anyway. His breath came out in a ragged whisper. No, I don't want to die. I want to live. 7th day. It had been a full week. Nothing had changed. Hajime's hunger was unbearable, but his fear of leaving the hole was stronger. He trembled in the dark, his body frail and his mind slowly unraveling. Why don't I just die already? He muttered, then shook his head violently. No, I don't want to die. I want to live. 8th day. Something inside Hajime was shifting. His mind teetered between the will to live and the temptation to surrender. His thoughts became darker, more twisted. Why do I have to suffer like this? I didn't do anything to deserve this. I was betrayed, a monster ate my left arm, and I was left to die. His mind wandered back to the betrayal. Over and over, he asked himself the same question. Who hurt me? Who tried to kill me? The more he thought, the deeper the hatred sank into his soul. It was no longer just anger, it was something much more dangerous. He clenched his teeth and let his thoughts consume him. What do I want? I want to live. Who is stopping me? My enemies. What should I do to them? Without realizing it, he spoke aloud, answering his own questions in a cold, detached tone. Kill them. 10th day. Hajime no longer harbored anger toward those who betrayed him. He didn't care about the gods who summoned him or the kingdom that abandoned him. None of them mattered anymore. Only one thing mattered now, his brother. Rimuru. He understood now. Rimuru wasn't just arrogant, he was a survivor, and endured suffering that Hajime couldn't even comprehend. His cold and distant nature wasn't a flaw, it was necessary. That's right, I just want to go home. I want to find Rimuru and return to our world. Anyone standing in my way is my enemy. If it's a demon, a hero, a god, then so be it. I'll kill them. Kill, kill, kill. Without realizing it, he had begun chanting the word, his voice devoid of emotion. This was no longer about vengeance or hatred. It was about survival. This was his new reality. Kill, or be killed. And so, Hajime made his decision. He would leave the hole. He would hunt. He would kill monsters and eat them if that was what it took to survive. With that, another monster of the abyss was born. In a certain area of the dungeon floor, a few gray wolves prowled through the darkness, their glowing eyes scanning for prey. Their fur was matted with blood from previous kills, and their sharp claws dug into the rocky terrain as they sniffed the air, searching for anything edible. The low growls that emanated from their throats echoed through the cavern, a haunting sound in the oppressive silence of the abyss. Then, suddenly, they noticed someone standing a few meters away. It was Hajime. He stood there, his ragged clothes barely holding together, his body covered in dirt and dried blood. Yet, despite his disheveled appearance, an unsettling grin stretched across his face. His once gentle expression was now replaced by something far more sinister, his eyes glinting with malice. "Come on, my prey," he whispered, his voice dripping with eerie amusement. "It's time to be my food." In his hands, he held a crude spear made from stone. It was hastily crafted using his transmutation ability, but it was sharp enough to pierce flesh. Hajime twirled it once, getting a feel for its weight before steadying his stance. The gray wolves snarled, baring their fangs as they charged at him. Their speed was astonishing, covering the distance in mere moments. But Hajime remained unfazed. Just before they could pounce, he slammed his hands onto the ground and shouted, "Transmute." The rocky floor beneath the wolves suddenly collapsed, revealing a deep pit filled with jagged spikes. The wolves, unable to halt their momentum, plunged straight into the trap. A sickening crunch filled the air as their bodies were impaled instantly. Blood splattered onto the dungeon floor, their pained whimpers fading into silence. Hajime smirked, stepping closer to the pit to inspect his handiwork. "That was one way to hunt beasts," he muttered, crouching down to grab one of the wolf corpses. Without hesitation, he began skinning them, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. Stripping them of their fur, he then hoisted the carcasses onto his back and made his way back to his hole. Once inside his small hideout, he dropped the meat onto the floor and sighed. "I have water and meat, though I can't cook it." He grabbed a chunk of raw wolf meat and, without thinking, took a bite. Immediately, searing pain exploded through his body. "Gah!" Hajime screamed, clutching his stomach as he collapsed to the ground. It was agony, far worse than when the bear had torn off his left arm. His insides felt as if they were being burned alive, his veins turning into rivers of molten lava. Gasping for breath, he crawled toward the stone bowl he had crafted using transmutation. Inside it was the holy water from the sacred crystal. With trembling hands, he lifted it to his lips and drank deeply. For a moment, relief washed over him as the pain subsided. But then, it returned. "Og hhhhh." He howled, rolling onto his back as the torment resumed. Again, he reached for the holy water and drank. Relief, then pain. Relief, then pain. Again and again, the cycle repeated, his body writhing in agony with each passing second. His screams echoed through the darkness, unheard by anyone. This torment continued for what felt like an eternity. But as time passed, something began to change. His black hair, which had been unkempt and dirty, started to lose its color. Strands of white began to replace the darkness, spreading until his entire head was covered in silvery white locks. His eyes, once a dull shade of orange, now glowed a deep crimson, like fresh blood under the moonlight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the pain faded. Hajime lay still, gasping for breath. His body felt different, lighter, stronger. Slowly, he pushed himself up and examined his hands. His muscles no longer ached, and he felt an odd sense of energy coursing through him. His gaze then drifted toward the holy crystal, where he caught sight of his own reflection. His breath hitched. "What the hell happened to me?" he murmured, his voice filled with disbelief. "I look like a demon." Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his status plate, the one thing that had survived the fall with him. With a deep breath, he muttered, "Show status." A glowing screen appeared before him. Hajime Nagumo. Age: 17. Race: Human. Class: Synergist, Craftsman Transmutation Specialist. Level: 8. Stats: Strength: 100. Vitality: 100. Defense: 100. Agility: 100 magic, 100 magic defense, 100 skills. Transmutation, creation type magic non-combat. High physical abilities. Mana manipulation, iron stomach, lightning cloak. Hajime's eyes widened in shock. My stats, they increased. Eating monsters made me stronger. His gaze shifted to his new abilities. Iron stomach? He muttered. Does that mean I can eat monster meat without any side effects now? Curious, he picked up another chunk of wolf meat and took a bite. He braced himself for the pain, but this time, nothing happened. The taste was still awful, bitter and gamey, but there was no unbearable agony. So the pain was just my body adapting. Hajime realized, a twisted grin forming on his lips. Hey, this changes everything. His eyes then landed on his final skill, lightning cloak. He focused, activating the ability. A sudden spark erupted around his body. His veins tingled with energy as lightning crackled around his limbs. His movements felt sharper, his reactions quicker. A wide grin spread across his face. So, it's the same ability that the wolves used, he mused, but now, it's mine. Deactivating the skill, he turned his attention to the remaining wolf meat. He channeled mana into his hands, using lightning cloak in a controlled manner to heat the meat. It sizzled slightly, the edges darkening. Taking another bite, he grimaced. Still tastes like shit, but it's better than raw meat. As he sat there, chewing on his meal, a realization struck him. He had changed. He was no longer the weak, timid Hajime Nagumo who had been thrown into the abyss. No, that boy had died the moment he fell into this hellhole. The Hajime who emerged from the darkness would be something far different. I will survive, he whispered to himself, and when I do, anyone who stands in my way will die. A day passed. In the dark abyss where Hajime had been trapped, he worked tirelessly on a new project. His body still felt different, stronger, faster, more attuned to his surroundings. The wolf meat had fundamentally changed him, and he had no intention of stopping now. During his experimentation with transmutation, he discovered a rare skill, metal manipulation. He had no idea how he had acquired it, but it was a game changer. With it, he could analyze the properties of metals, reshape them, and forge new weapons. And now, he had access to a material known as toru metal, a black, durable substance with a hardness of 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. This will do perfectly, Hajime muttered, his crimson eyes glinting with excitement. Using transmutation and metal manipulation together, he carefully shaped the toru metal. Hours passed as he refined the metal, adjusting its density and form until, finally, his creation was complete. A gun. A pistol, to be exact, modeled after the ones from his world. Sleek, black, and deadly. Hajime let out a breathless chuckle as he turned it over in his hands, the weight feeling perfect in his grip. A gun. I made a freaking gun in another world. He had also crafted bullets using the same metal, infused with his magic to ensure they could pierce even the toughest of monsters. For the first time since falling into the abyss, Hajime felt something other than despair, he felt power. With a determined grin, he climbed out of his hold to test his new weapon. A few meters away, Hajime spotted movement, a rabbit monster. Hajime's eyes narrowed. He recognized it. It was one of those insanely fast creatures that had nearly killed him before. The rabbit noticed Hajime as well and instantly tensed, preparing to attack. But this time, Hajime didn't panic. Raising his newly crafted gun, he aimed with steady hands. The rabbit lunged, moving at a speed that would have been impossible for a normal human to track. Bang! One shot. The bullet hit its mark, piercing the monster's skull. The rabbit collapsed lifelessly to the ground, its momentum carrying it forward until it skidded to a halt. Hajime exhaled, a victorious smirk on his face. Finally, I have the upper hand now. Walking over to the corpse, he activated lightning cloak, letting the electric aura envelop his hand. Using it as a makeshift cooking method, he roasted the rabbit meat before taking a bite. This time, he felt no pain. No agonizing transformation. Guess my body's used to monster meat now, he mused, chewing thoughtfully. He didn't even flinch at the taste anymore, it was just food, fuel for his survival. After finishing his meal, Hajime grabbed his status plate. Holding it up, he commanded. Show status. The glowing letters appeared before him. Hajime Nagumo. Age: 17. Race: human. Class: Synergist Craftsman Transmutation Specialist. Level: 12. Stats: Strength: 200. Vitality: 200. Defense: 200. Agility: 200. Magic: 200. Magic Defense: 200. Skills: Transmutation, Creation Type Magic Non-Combat. High Physical Abilities. Mana Manipulation, Iron Stomach, Lightning Cloak, Quick Step, a skill allowing instant acceleration, almost like teleportation. Divine Step, the ability to step on invisible platforms in midair. Hajime stared at the screen, his crimson eyes widening slightly. This is getting interesting. Each time he consumed monster meat, his stats skyrocketed, and he gained new abilities. This world's logic no longer applied to him. He was evolving beyond what any human should be capable of. Standing up, he stretched his arms, feeling his newfound power coursing through him. Then, he turned his gaze towards the deeper parts of the abyss. It's time to meet an old friend. A sinister grin spread across his face. The bear that had taken his arm, the creature that had marked the beginning of his descent into hell, was still out there. And now, Hajime was ready for revenge. Hajime moved through the dark labyrinth, his crimson eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. His grip on his newly crafted pistol tightened as he advanced cautiously. The scent of blood and damp stone filled his nostrils, but he ignored it, his focus locked onto one goal: revenge. "I know you're here," he muttered to himself, scanning the cavernous expanse before him. The bear that had taken his arm was somewhere on this floor. Hajime had tracked its movements, noting the scratches along the walls and the remains of its recent kills. He was no longer the weakling it had feasted upon. Now, he was the hunter. A deep growl resonated through the tunnels, sending vibrations through the ground beneath him. Hajime smirked. "Hello, old friend. Remember me?" The massive black bear-like monster, covered in thick fur and rippling muscles, stepped into view. Its crimson eyes locked onto Hajime, and a guttural roar escaped its throat as it recognized its former prey. Without hesitation, the beast lunged forward, its enormous claws ready to tear Hajime apart once more. Hajime didn't move. At the last possible moment, he activated Quick Step, vanishing from the bear's path and reappearing several meters away. "Yeah, that's right," Hajime taunted, raising his pistol. "I'm a threat now, not a weak little snack." The bear turned, its beastly instinct sensing danger, but it was too late. Hajime pulled the trigger. Bang! A bullet pierced the monster's shoulder, sending it staggering back with a pained roar. Unlike normal weapons, Hajime's gun was forged with toru metal, a rare and dense material capable of penetrating the toughest of hides. He had enhanced the bullets using transmutation, ensuring each shot carried lethal force. The bear's eyes burned with fury. It charged again, faster than before, its claws slashing through the air like deadly scythes. Hajime barely managed to deviate step, using the invisible platforms to propel himself upward and avoid the devastating attack. Landing gracefully, he took aim and fired another shot. This time, the bullet struck the bear's leg, making it stumble. "What's the matter? Not so tough when the prey fights back, huh?" Hajime mocked. The bear let out an enraged roar and used its powerful limbs to launch itself at Hajime. Expecting this, Hajime dodged once more, appearing at the monster's side. He grinned darkly and raised his pistol. Bang! The shot hit the beast's forearm, blasting its hand clean off. The severed limb fell to the ground with a wet thud. Hajime approached it, kneeling down. He picked up the massive clawed hand, examining it. Then, to the bear's horror, he took a bite. "How does it feel? Watching your own flesh being eaten?" Hajime asked, chewing. The taste was horrible, but he swallowed anyway, knowing the power it would grant him. The bear, now furious beyond reason, roared and lunged once more, but Hajime was faster. With a calm expression, he pointed the gun directly at the monster's skull. Bang! The bullet ripped through its thick cranium, and the monster collapsed instantly, its lifeless body hitting the ground with a heavy thud. Hajime exhaled, stepping back from the corpse. He clenched his fist, feeling the overwhelming energy surging within him. Then, the pain struck. Gah! He dropped to one knee, clutching his stomach as the unbearable burning sensation spread through his entire body. It was even worse than before. His organs felt like they were being set ablaze from the inside out. He reached into his pouch, pulling out a container filled with holy water. He gulped it down, feeling relief wash over him, but the pain quickly returned. Again and again, he drank, suffering through the process just like before. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the agony subsided. Hajime slowly stood up, his body feeling even stronger than before. He flexed his fingers, testing his movement, and noticed something odd. His wounds had healed faster than usual. He reached for his status plate, still miraculously intact, and activated it. Hajime Nagumo, age, 17, race, human, class, synergist, craftsman, transmutation specialist. Level, 18, stats, strength, 500, vitality, 300, defense, 400. Agility, 500, magic, 500, magic defense, 700, skills. Transmutation, creation type magic, non-combat, high physical abilities. Mana manipulation, iron stomach, lightning cloak, quick step, instant short-range teleportation. Deviant step, allows the user to step on invisible platforms. Regeneration. Hajime's lips curled into a grin. Looks like eating stronger monsters has even better rewards. Standing tall, he holstered his gun. His gaze turned toward the tunnels leading to the dungeon's upper floors. "That's enough fooling around," he muttered. "It's time to find Rimuru and get out of here." For the first time in weeks, Hajime had a clear direction. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was evolving, growing into something beyond human. His crimson eyes burned with determination. No matter what stood in his way, he would find Rimuru. He would find a way back home. And if anyone tried to stop him, they would die. With that thought, Hajime turned and began his ascent, heading toward the upper floors of the dungeon. To be continued,